Hi all, Anne has very kindly given me the Zoom stage to talk with life and living with fibromyalgia and Asperger's. She has introduced me, but I'm going to reintroduce myself. I'm Rebecca, and I'm from a small mining town in the northwest of South Africa called Rustenburg. And we live on the foot of the Gallysberg mountain range, which is one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world. So we are very fortunate to live here. In 2014, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and in 2018, I was diagnosed with Asperger's. And I only made this diagnosis public earlier this year because I have lived in denial about it for many, many years. And I finally decided that I was doing something to help myself with it. So it was going to be a good time to share it. So before I get onto what my life was like, I'm going to just share a couple sentences of what fibromyalgia and Asperger's is. Fibromyalgia is the way your brain perceives pain. So basically your brain perceives pain when there is no pain. So the symptoms range from anxiety, depression, fatigue, chronic pain, and many, many other symptoms. And Asperger's is on the autism spectrum, and it is also got symptoms that overlap with fibromyalgia, including sensory overload and anxiety. Both fibromyalgia and Asperger's have sensory overload as a symptom. So I have both. I studied culinary arts at a chef school in South Africa, and I did my internship with a media company in South Africa in food styling and recipe development. I knew from a very early age that being in a professional kitchen wasn't going to be an option for me, both because of my fibromyalgia and because of my sensory overload. I was very fortunate that a few of the top restaurants in South Africa allowed me to do some work experience with them when I was still at high school. And this kind of gave me an insight as to if I would be able to follow a career in the professional kitchen. And I realized at this time that it wasn't going to be a viable option for me. So I decided that doing food photography, recipe development was more along my line. I am now doing recipes that heal the body, brain, and gut, and recipes that heal your body from the inside out. And I'm also doing content development for a chef magazine in South Africa, as well as doing recipe book reviews for a publication company as well. At my internship, my boss said to me, when I went to go tell her that I had Asperger's, she said to me, "Oh, I could have guessed you had Asperger's. I could have guessed you had it as you walked through the doors." And this was quite a shock to me because I thought that it was quite subtle and I thought I was quite high functioning. So to have her say that was quite a big shock, but I was angry at first, but it made sense to me a bit later on. And after my diagnosis, which was about in March 2018, I got into quite a big depression, and I went to spend 3 weeks in clinic in South Africa. It started off with 1 week, and then it went to 2 weeks, and then the third week was probably the hardest for me because I went quite deep into my childhood and schooling years. But it gave me big insight, and I went into places that I didn't know existed. it was a very challenging time because I also had my final exam hanging over me. And when I came out of clinic after 3 weeks, I had only 3 weeks before my final culinary arts exam and 4 weeks before my graduation. So it was a very, very stressful time. And it was three weeks is a big chunk to take out of a 6-month internship. But now with introductions over, and now that you have an idea of what I'm doing, I'm going to go a bit more into my primary years. In primary school, I did grade 1. My first year, I did grade 1 normal, mainstream, and then I did bridging class for grade 1 and 2. So I repeated grade 1 and I did grade 2 in bridging class, or what the international schools might know it as remedial. And in my primary school years, I was squint in my one eye, so I wore a patch to strengthen my eye with the squint. And I also had braces. And I had braces for a large proportion of my primary school years. So it was a true, those combined was a true reason to be bullied and an opportunity for people to make fun of me, along with, at the time, not knowing that I had Asperger's. We went to many specialists, often outside of Rustenburg, because we didn't have specialists in Rustenburg, or not many at that time. So we would go to the capital city of South Africa, Pretoria or Joburg, for the special doctor appointments. And I was diagnosed with ADHD. And I wonder if that was not a cover-up diagnosis for Asperger's, but we won't know, and we'll leave that unanswered. But I was diagnosed in 2018 with Asperger's. I could not say, no, stop it, please don't. I don't like that. I found that very difficult to do in primary school. So kids often were able to and had the opportunity to make fun of me. Teachers would have to come up to me and say, are you aware of what they're doing? They're making fun of you. Say no, say you don't like it, do something about it, don't just stay quiet. So it took me a while to learn to do that, and I eventually learned that skill. And I also learned to internalize a lot of what was going on. It became very real to me, the idea of rejection. Or should I say rejection became a very real idea to me, because I would go around from group to group trying to make friends and trying to fit in, but I wouldn't ever find that group. I wouldn't ever find a group that would be happy for me to sit with. So I often went to the teacher on duty, and me and the teacher would talk, if they weren't talking to another teacher, or I would just go sit by myself and I would just go internalize things. And I found playgrounds very hard because it was an area of sensory overload. As I mentioned, when I explained what Asperger's and fibromyalgia was, I explained that sensory overload is a big factor of that. And then in grade 5, I was put on behavior report, and I will never know why, nor will anybody else know why. Only the teacher that put me on it will know. And I would often be seen by the other students handing over this report from teacher to teacher, and everyone knew exactly what that was. Everyone knew exactly what it was because all the naughty guys had it, and the naughty guys shared with the others what it was. So everyone knew exactly what was going on. So that was a further opportunity for kids to make fun of me, and it didn't help me not knowing why I was put onto it. If it was explained to me, if it was told to me why I was put on it, I would have been able to work on that area. But I wasn't ever told, so I wasn't ever able to work on why I was put on it. But in primary school is when I started piling on the weight, and I've actually got quite a funny story. At the time I was very upset, but now it's actually quite funny. In one of my primary years, I was walking around at a restaurant with my two young cousins, and the restaurant manager said to me, "Oh my goodness, you've got two such cute kids, and I see your third is on the way." And so I was obviously quite overweight at that time, and I didn't quite realize how overweight I was. And I just got more and more overweight as time went on. And as time went on, I also didn't fit into groups more and more. And that carried on from primary school into high school. And I call it playground politics. And that is, for me, represents going from group to group, asking if I can sit with them, and them not wanting me to sit there. So I would ask a group, "Can I sit with you?" And they would be like, "No." Or I would go sit with them, and then they would move, and they would carry on moving until I would stop following them. And one day I actually asked, "Why you keep running away from me?" And they just said, quite straightforward, "Because we don't like you and we don't want you to sit with us." And I found that very hurtful. And that playground politics turned into classroom politics, where I was bombarded by students in class time. So if there was a free period or a period where we could do homework, I would often be asked, "Why am I doing homework when there is after school that I can do homework?" And I was one of those that wanted to make the most of my time during class, so there was less to do later, right? So anyway, I later realized that wasn't ever going to work, and I just had to get over that idea and realize that not everyone had the same idea. So I just had to move on and do homework at home. Eventually, the bullying got to a stage where I started recording classroom time, because I wanted physical proof. I wanted physical evidence of what the kids were doing to me. And I didn't ever have to use it. But I recorded 6-7 hours of school time on voice recording, just so I had that proof. So if somebody was to say, "What did somebody do to you?" I could say, "Well, that was in lesson so-and-so at this time." As I say, I never ever used that. But in grade 10 or 11, I can't necessarily remember, everyone had that one teacher that they just didn't get along with. And this is part of my Asperger's. And it's another one of those stories that I will never make sense of, really. And I was very angry at the situation. My parents were called into the principal's office. And as you know, I like to see myself as one of those good girls. And the teacher that called my parents in said to them, "I'm challenging her abilities, and I am making her doubt her abilities as a teacher, and saying that she's not a good teacher." And I didn't ever, I heard that, and I was like, but I never ever said that to anybody. I don't understand where that's coming from. And that's another thing where Asperger's comes in, because people with Asperger's like to know the exact reason why things are the way they are. They want more in-depth explanation. And that's all I was really trying to get to. I actually wrote this teacher a note, letter, and I never heard back from her. So it's one of those things that one will never know. And after this incident, when I was still struggling, and during this whole thing, I was still struggling with pain as well, of fibromyalgia, I went into grade 12 homeschooling, and I did my grade 12 over 2 years. I did 3 subjects and 4 subjects through a school homeschooling company, and I did it without a tutor. So that's why I did it over 2 years. 1, because I couldn't sit at a desk for a long time, and 2, because I was doing it without a tutor. My mom was a teacher at the school that I used to be at the primary school, and so no one was there to monitor me. And I just, to take away some of the stress and anxiety, that I just decided to do it over 2 years. So with the above said, other things that people with Asperger struggle with are social situations, cutting in conversations. I'm very guilty about that one. Following a story is very hard. Distractions and obsessions. That's so obsessions. My obsession before my health started was all about cooking. I wanted to know everything about cooking. That's all I wanted to talk about. And after my fibromyalgia started, that obsession became my health. So it changed from food to health, and I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know everything about what was going on in my health. I wanted to know more about my fibromyalgia. I wanted to know more about what was going on. And in grade 9, when I was diagnosed, or I was diagnosed in grade 10, my pain started in grade 9. I went on a lot of self-help things. I started going to a psychologist. I went to many retreats at a local retreat center that's nestled in the Magaliesberg mountain range, which, as I said, is one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world. And this retreat center became like my second home. It became my safe space, and it became a space where I could really be at home, because I suppose it was just like-minded people, really. And at this time, I also met 2 doctors, along with my other doctors. But later on in my high school, I met a couple of other doctors who introduced me to diet. And I went onto a very strict and rigid low-carb way of eating, or lifestyle, should I say. I like to call it a lifestyle rather than a diet, to help pain, but also lose weight that I had put on over the years of having been bullied. Food became my comfort, and I became quite overweight. So I became 87 kilograms at the age of 18. So I needed to lose. I was at one stage 87 kgs. So I'll show you some photos a bit later on, and you'll be able to see where I was coming from. I met both psychologists at this retreat center, and they both played a very important role in my life at different times. Each one came in at different times of my life. So, and I'll be forever grateful for that. Breathing became my painkiller and my sleeping tablets. For me, it calms my nervous system, which is very important with fibromyalgia. And I find that a breathing pattern of breathing in for 4, holding it for 7, and breathing out for 8, really helpful. I had various doctors and specialists help me throughout my diagnoses, and each one, once again, had their role to play, and they still do have their role to play. But together with doctors, I wanted to implement a more integrated approach. And this is when I remembered in 2013, when I went to a lady once again in Pretoria, Prof. Nola Dippenaar, and I went to her when I was quite overweight. And at the time I was a Jamie Oliver Food Revolution ambassador. And I remember thinking at that time that I can't be an ambassador to get kids eating healthily when I am an unhealthy weight. And that is when my true passion for eating healthily really began, and the process of losing weight began. So it's been a very long process. I was my heaviest at that point. And at the time, I thought her program was too hard and it was far above my fireplace. But at the beginning of this year, I decided that I wanted to integrate together with medicine and the doctors that were supplying me with a medicinal approach. I wanted to implement a more holistic approach so I can have the two balancing on a fine line of using both. And so I went back to Nola, Prof. Nola Dippenaar. She's a professor of physiology at the Pretoria University. And she reintroduced me to gut health. And she also reintroduced me to my passion of food and my passion of combining food and health. And I started doing blog posts on healthy food. I also started developing recipes to heal the body, brain, and gut. So we worked on various areas: supplement, sleep, diet, and exercise. And there are a few points that stood out for me that are specifically like aha moment. The one is the gut-brain barrier. And the gut-brain barrier being the lining of your gut is the same lining of your brain. So if your lining of your gut's inflamed, your lining of your brain is inflamed. And this will influence the way that your body perceives pain. And it also will give you heightened anxiety and depression. So it was vital that we were going to get my gut health healthy. And gut health is something fibromyalgia people struggle with, and it is also something that Asperger struggle with. So I had no chance. Your gut contains 80% of your immune surveillance system. So if your gut bacteria aren't healthy, then you would often find yourself I would often find myself getting sick and find myself unwell. I have since started taking a probiotic, and I find this hugely helpful. So I also suffered from allergies or intolerances. And the reason for this is proteins from foods go into your bloodstream through tears in your gut lining. And these proteins go into your bloodstream, and your cells have to fight these proteins, which cause your inflammation in various ways, which can be pain, it can be an allergy, in the form of an allergy, it can come in various ways. So my pain is still there. I will always have it. I am hopeful that it will get better. But there's a few things that have also helped me. Stress shoots you in the foot when it comes to gut health. So meditation, mindfulness is a great help. If you do not manage stress and anxiety, your gut will never heal. Supplements, I took omega-3s, vitamin D high doses, and I also took an intestiflora, which is your probiotics, which is also, I found, out of all of them, the most influential. So highly suggested. Food is what I studied. It what made me fat, and it was now going to be my medication, and it was going to make me better. It sounds extreme, but I went off dairy supplement. I went off dairy, gluten, preservatives, and a whole lot of other things. But it has made a big difference for me. So I'm going to go over a few photos. If I can get the presentation running. Share screen. And PowerPoint. So this was me as a child. As you can see with my braces, and this was when I was still skinny and I was healthy. Here I started piling on the weight, and this was at an event where I was a guest for a audition round of a competition, which was really, really a great experience. I think I was 16, 17 here. This was at a Big Five, at a elephant sanctuary where they look after elephants. It was, you can see here, especially in my arms, that I was very overweight. This was at a Jamie Oliver Food Revolution event with the MasterChef South Africa contestant. In an Italian kitchen, learning how to make risotto. Also, you can see I was overweight at the time when I was still eating carbs. This is just to show you my posture, my bad posture at that. You can see not very good postural. And here, this photo was just taken before I went into clinic. I wasn't very healthy here. I lost the last 10 kilograms very unhealthily in a very rapid way by not eating what I should be eating. And at this point, I had lost 30 kilograms all in all, so I was 57 here. I need to get back to a weight about this, but we'll get there with time. This was taken just before I went to clinic. It has a long story. The pig, yeah, we live on a pig farm, on a farm. This was me doing my final culinary arts practical. Very stressed, plating up. Can't remember what I was plating. I think it must have been my starter because I have some stuff in the background there. This is the mountain range. This is Magaliesberg. These are the mountain ranges that I live on the foot of. You can see I'm very, very close to them. Once again, another farm picture. And here I'm trying to paddleboard, not really happening, but I think I stayed on for about a minute. My two big mentors, Prue Leith and Michelle Roux Jr., who I met in London in 2019, when I was very fit, very healthy, probably my healthiest I have been since I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And here is at a retreat center in South Africa, very special place. And here I'm giving my demo about healing the body, brain, and gut. I'm giving a demo about healthy food. Just the can't pick. And you cannot supplement and exercise your way out of a bad diet. Just love it. And another one, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And that is where I'm going to end it. I'm going to just say one more quote. I am a bit of a quotey person. You can't wait until life is not hard anymore until you decide to be happy. And there we go. Thank you.